I believe so, guys. We have gone through the installation and perform couple of steps here. So now we know how to find the image and how to choose the image, how to pull the image, right? So again, I am going to search for one image here and choose it. Let's say I'm going to find one Apache image here. Let's say I search for STDB, right? This is my Apache image. So you can search for this Apache image here, right? And see what tags it has. It has multiple tags, it has multiple images, like it has Alpine OS, right? Some latest versions here, and you can see the official document. Also you can also see how the Docker file, which Docker file has been used to create this. So you can get each and everything from here, right? Even there will be some option from where you'll be able to like see the source code of this. Here should be, I think there are the issue, Stack Overflow, community. So you can get everything from here, right? So I'm gonna pull this latest image at this moment, right? Now if I do Docker images, so this was a pretty small image which is in 165 MB, right? So first I have already explained you, if you want to validate any image, like if you want to see if this image is good or not, if this image do not have any issue, so you just have to go to interactive mode, docker run hyphen it, which is called the interactive mode. You can give the image ID, you can give the repository tag. Oh, I'm sorry, my bad. So you can give the repository tag also to start your image, right, to create your container. So that's totally up to you how you want to do that. So I'm going to go with the image, right, and I will replace this to ID. So this was the interactive mode, which basically tells your Apache is getting started perfectly fine. So now once you have tested your image, you are good to deploy this image to your environments, right? So what exactly you need to do for this? You need to run this image in the foreground mode. For doing this, you have to do d will run this image in the detach mode, right? Hyphen p is for ports, right? So I gonna explain the port binding in this session, right? What is port binding basically, right? If you see, if I run this image just like this, like docker run hyphen d hyphen name, let's say I would call it web1, I will run this image, right? And if I will do docker ps here, guys, you will see here port 80 only, right? That means this is the port of your container. If you want to access this image from the public domain, right, from outside of this network, you will not be able to do that, right? This image, I think this Apache will either be accessible from inside your Docker or from the Docker host, from this specific host only. For that you can do docker inspect and get the Docker IP, right? What is the IP of this image? So what I can do is IP ADDR. Inspect, right? So you can see this is the IP of this Docker container. So if you do E-link here, let's say I do curl here 172.17.0.2, right? You can see this site is working fine. But if I try to access this image from my machine, I won't be able to do that. So let's hit this. You can see this site can't be reached, right? Even if my firewall port is open, right? So what exactly you need to do for this? You need the port bindings. We have total, do you know how many protocols we have? We have around 65,535 protocols in our system, in our firewalls, in our applications, right? So total number is 65,535 protocol, right? So these are in my host itself, in my host machine, in my either it is virtual machine or this is my hypervisor machine, right? So what exactly you have to do in port binding is you have to bind the port of your machine, I mean your machine in which the Docker engine is installed, with the container image, I mean with the container port in which the application is running. You know, Apache works in port 80 inside the container, right? So what you have to do is you have to bind your port 8080 with host port 80, right? If you see the example here, which it says P 8080 is my system port and this 80 is a container port. That means I mapped 8080 with 80. Even if you want to map the, you know, you can say with some specific IPs, what this will do is whatever the IP you have in your system, right, those will be mapped. But if you want to map with some specific IP, then you can give the IP colon port and the container port. If you want to specify the UDP and TCP port, you can also specify like this, right? So what I am going to do is, let me just remove this container quickly. Right now, if I do Docker PS, there is no container, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to publish the port, which is called publishing port or binding the ports, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give the port, let's say -p 80 with 80. What I'm doing here, I am binding the host port 80 with container port 80, and the name of the container is web1. Perfect, right? Now if I do Docker PS, what do you see here? 0.0.0, that means any IP in the system, right? Whatever the IP in this system, they have been bind with 80 port with container 80 port, right? So even if you try curl HTTP 127.0.0.0, I mean 1, even you can open this over the loopback IP address, right? So let's also try this over my private IP. What I did, okay, something is wrong. So this is my IP, so let me do curl. That's working. So let's go ahead and see my public IP also. So it might be this is taking over HTTPS. So you can say this is working fine, right? This is how a port binding works. If you do not specify the port, right? If you do not specify the port, then in this case your application will be accessible from either inside of your Docker or over that specific IP only. So that's why we need port binding here, right? Let's say if you want to run multiple container in the same machine, and you know 80 port is already bind with 80 port. So what exactly you need to do? You can do, let's say 8080 port is bind with 80, and you'll have to change your container name. This way you will be able to run the multiple containers in the system. So what this is doing, now if you do Docker PS, you'll be able to see two containers running with web1 and web2, right? And if you see here the port 8080 is bind with 80. Now let's go ahead and verify this. If this is working fine, if the port is open, then we should be able to access it, right? I am able to access this. over the 8080 port also, because I'm running multiple containers from the same image. Let's say if you want to create multiple images, so what we'll have to do, you'll just have to write give the I'm sorry, I keep the same name here, that's what the issue came in, right? 3. So what I'm saying is bind my host 8081 port with container 80 port and give this name web3. So now you'll be able to see another third container is running, web1, web2 and web3, right? So this way the port bindings can help you.